They're technical masterpieces.
Overcomposed versus like undercomposed. Like I might just think, oh, I need to compose this to death
Right.
and it'll be good, as opposed to. But I think the thing that is a tricky problem to solve is like, am I still being slightly naive, or is like naivety a part of the way that I make things
Mm.
that, I came here to like slightly deviate from and be like, yeah, I know how to make music and I like making it, but the only way I do it is get really into a certain flow and then just like catch a bunch of stuff and then I can't do it again?
Right.
So that is part of my personal style. And like I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, like caught that one. That's pretty interesting. Um, and I think I'd like to keep part of that, um,
Hmm.
but not continue to fall into the same rut where it's like, oh, I'll just never get out of doing whatever happens and then being like, that's that, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a quick thought there. And then maybe like for now we can pick this up like the next time that we talk. And there will be like a call tomorrow from 12 to 2. So there will be time then. It sounds like there's some tension, I think, in your sort of um aesthetic like desires or like creative thinking between the sort of like the naivete of like just kind of intuitively making things without necessarily doing a lot of like discerning or like conscious discerning or like editing or like intensely judging. um yeah, and then like this desire to be able to do that sort of editing, which is, yeah, like one of the things that we've talked about as like, yeah, as a goal. And I think that that actually isn't like, I don't like I think in the short term that's, I'd imagine that's like a confusing thing to go through. And there are these tensions where I feel multiple ways at the same time in my own practice, like maybe not necessarily about this specific thing, but there are ambivalences for me that are pretty confusing. And I think the challenge that I have for you with that is to, for one thing, like observe it as you go through this process. You could even take notes about your opinions about this stuff in your work as you go. Um, and maybe something that I'd like to ask you at some point is like what this sort of like naivete in process or in results like means to you, because it seems like maybe there are things within it that are very like right for you that you
Mhm.
want to keep. And then there are, it seems like maybe there are also things in there that are the sort of like subcomponents of this that you feel like are like holding you back in some way.
Yeah. I mean, it can like shine through in different ways. Like, do you ever listen to like Roy Montgomery? It's a
I
guitarist.
don't I don't know Roy Montgomery.
He's really cool, but he's on the naive end of the the pendulum. And like same thing with like what is that guy's name? Robert Lester Folsom,
Hmm.
right? That and like I feel like Duster is like very tactical, but like presents as like naive in different ways. So there's elements of it that's like, oh cool, like this is just a straight shot and there's not a lot of like censorship. But then yeah, I guess looking back critically, you're like, oh, I wish I could have tightened that up or have censored this way, something like that. So it could also just be like a personal mm, reflection thing?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the word censorship has like a punitive element to it. And for me, it feels like the editing helps me get closer to what it is that I really want. Like sometimes in an early stage of a sketching process, I'll get something that feels really right, but often for me it feels like it's just like a first step. But there are a lot of things about it that like just don't feel right. Um and at this point for me, I'm realizing I'm starting to be able to hear, especially with lyrics, when think like what it sounds like when I have a first draft that feels very unfinished. Like I'm just thinking about lyrics. It was something that I was working on this morning. Um, but yeah, so for me, the editing and the deleting and the replacing is a way of getting closer to what it is that like deep down I want to do, and like I can kind of like feel it in my gut, like when something is right or on the right track, and I can also tell when something isn't quite there for me yet, and so that is a personal thing. But that's also, I guess, that's also been cultivated over like I guess more than a decade now. Um, from and there's been a lot of discerning along the way. I think that when I'm trying to understand any sort of spectrum, um like more or less of anything, what really helps me understand it more is trying to work, yeah, again going back to like contrast, is like really working with contrast. Um and so I would wonder for this record, or for this collection of tracks that you're starting to think about, like maybe try to make a few things that are intentionally like naive, and then maybe try to make like one thing that you let yourself on a specific time scale, like be like, I'm doing this for 5 days or something. Like just try editing and improving and editing and improving and stuff. And then you have different things that you can compare and contrast. And I guess kind of a last thought here is that there are ways that this is showing up on the kind of the full length kind of like electronic record that I'm working on, which has the working title like Feedback Chamber. So yeah, I'll just call it Feedback Chamber instead of like calling it the ambient electronic stuff. I've also got this fly buzzing around my head, which I don't love, but that's fine. Where a lot of the stuff just kind of appeared intuitively. Um, but there's one track that I kind of carried over from a much, much, much earlier project, and it didn't feel right. And I kept on working on it and editing it, and I kept on working on it and editing it, and it's wound up in a completely different place. It bears no resemblance to the original thing at all. And I feel like it, I mean, I'll see how I feel about it towards the end of the process, but right now it doesn't really cohere with the rest of the record. And for a lot of reasons, but it feels really different like in time. Like the other things are just these ideas that are so like pure and like direct. And this thing is much more just kind of like tangled and confused. I think some of it is that I think this specific track kind of at this point works better as like sound art than like dark ambient music. Like it loses something. It like crosses a threshold into sounding like fine art instead of like there's some genre or mood thing that is lost in it. Um, but I still like this other thing. It's just it feels really different. And I think um one of the things that happens when I listen through the record and I get to that track is that the way that time is unfolding changes a lot. Like from this just kind of like expanse where things are happening and they're kind of mysterious and like they're coming and going to something, it feels more like reading a really well written paragraph than like standing in like fog.
Hmm.
It's so different. It's I don't know. And like I've made things that feel both of those ways, but I've never tried to put them next to each other, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what I'm getting from it is that like with a lot of the stuff that pretty much feels right, it's still not like done, and so I want to spend some time in the next few months just going through and kind of like cleaning up the things that I am less like crazy about within them. Like there are a lot of little things that I hear that and I'm like I want to fix that. Um, yeah, and I feel like I learned a lot from making the more detailed thing. I w there's something else that I was thinking about that I wanted to say that's related to all of this. Oh yeah, well, so I guess it also has to do with like time scale because for me, the stuff that constitutes Feedback Chamber really started to appear like last September. And I was trying to make this record for like a year or more before that, but I just wasn't. I mean, a lot of it was just technique. Like I just didn't. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know. Um, but yeah, like for me, the idea that if I spend another month on it or another 2 months on it, then I'll get it to where I want to go doesn't bother me because I mean, it drives me a little bit crazy because I want it to be done, but I think I am comfortable just kind of like thinking on bigger like time scales. Um, which might yeah, I'm like as I'm thinking about it, like I mean, I'm also I think I'm just straight up like I'm just having an off day, so I'm not quite as sharp as I'd like to be. But like it's not just time scales, it's like knowing when to stop editing. It's like maybe what some of it has to do with is sort of have things having sort of like a haiku quality or something where it appears and it's an image and you can't really argue with it. Like like when I make things that are really intuitive and just kind of appear, it's a little bit like looking at like a leaf or something where I can't judge a leaf, you know, like I can't be like you're a bad leaf.
Hmm.
Um but it's like that versus like looking at like I don't know like architecture or like looking at a building or something like that where the building might have problems, like there might be like a staircase that doesn't go anywhere, you know. And so I don't know, I guess it's like for me it's like if something has the feeling of like looking at a leaf, um trying to preserve that kind of like that wonder,
Yeah.
and that sense that it just is really different than trying to like improve a building. But for me, I've learned so much about the short term things or the things that feel like looking at a leaf from doing the really complicated architectural stuff too. And so I guess it's also like just all the stuff you're doing, you're building a way of discerning and thinking and getting in touch with your feelings and gut feelings about material, and about form and about sounds and stuff like that, so that hopefully like in the future, like there are things that I can make now that feel like looking at a leaf that I would have had to be super architectural about like 7 years ago. And so it's interesting how it relates to skills, and like when we're pushing our skills, things can feel a lot more like constructed and carefully edited and stuff, whereas if we're working super within our skill set, um intuition seems to show up differently. So I don't know, these are a lot of thoughts at least.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think of it as like creative flexibility. Like you can be really spry creatively and so comfortable doing whatever that like you find cool stuff. And
Mhm.
like that naive creative flexibility is very different from like tactical strategy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll bring this up Saturday, but for the sake of the call, one thing that I'm noticing in the life cycle of a project is like you start doing something, you find an element that resonates, and you understand the effect that you've drawn yourself into in that creation process. And you're like, I want people to get this. Like, I want them to hit this wall or like touch this thing. Let me understand that thing and then like give it 3 dimensions, with like a
Yeah.
multitude of songs. And yeah, I've got an idea, and now I just need to make something that like I touch or is something that I want to be the basis, of
Mm.
it. And then it's like, oh, cool, let me come at it from all directions and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the early discovery session takeaway or goal.
Yeah.
With something like guitar lessons, like I want to play that Robert Fripp solo, or like this is the sound I'm going for, versus with this class, it's more about finding your sound, which I think is extremely important if you're trying to create like meaningful music that connects with people, but also with yourself. Like none of us are blank slates. Everybody coming into this course identifies in some way or another as an artist or a musician who, again, hasn't necessarily unlocked what they want to unlock.